Hello there, students from Beehive. It's a pleasure to have you here with me. This is teacher Krishna, and this will be our science class for week number 12. The topics that we are going to study this time are topics 3.01 and 3.02. Right before we start, you have to follow some instructions that you had done already in previous lessons. So log into Agilex, enter the Google Classroom, download the Word document, save it to your science folder, and name it in this way. The only difference that you have here is that you need to include the week number, which in this case will be week number 12. Then, of course, add your code, name, grade, and section. Keep in mind that it's very important that you take notes along the way so you are identifying the most important things from the presentation, which is going to help you out to learn way better. And remember that it's important to begin with the end in mind. So our end in mind for this week is students will be able to complete assessments from topics 3.01 and 3.02. Here we're going to make a very small change, and we're just going to complete the assessment for topic 3.01 because it takes time, and I wouldn't like you to spend way too much time in the morning and in the afternoon completing everything. So we're just going to start with one of them. All right, so topic 3.01 is surface water. So first of all, humans use water for several activities: public supply, rural and domestic livestock, irrigation, and thermoelectric power. So, where do humans find all of this water? Well, we find a lot of this water in the surface, and it is found in many different ways, such as lakes, as rivers, as rain, oceans, etc., etc. And of course, we use all of that water for all of the specifications that I just gave you in this first paragraph. It's important to remember that spheres in Earth are biosphere, cryosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. And most of them are in contact with water in the surface. So, if we talk about biosphere, in order to create life, it's crucial to have water in a biosphere because animals supply from water as well as plants. If there isn't water, probably plants and animals will die. All of the cryosphere is formed by surface water, by surface that was once in the oceans, but now that has frozen into ice. Next one, the hydrosphere. Remember that the hydrosphere is all of the combination of water that is in Earth, including rivers, lakes, and absolutely everything. Lastly, it might not seem like, but in the geosphere, it's possible to find water as well, because there is something that is called groundwater, which is water that infiltrates under the ground and that it starts floating and flowing around because of some permeable and impermeable rocks underground. And right now, I have some other words where you can find water. So, for example, river, that's pretty simple to understand. And I'm pretty sure you have seen rivers before. But now there are some other words that might be a little bit difficult. For example, streams. What is a stream? Let me tell you that it's very similar to a river, but is way smaller. So you can have that comparison. So a stream is a smaller river, right? Now we have lakes and ponds. So in lakes and ponds, we have an example of a lake can be the Lake of Amatitlan, which is in Sololá. And now, what is a pond? Well, basically, a pond is very similar to a lake. The only difference is that it is way smaller. Wetlands. Wetlands are, for example, Petén, because it is a environment that is constantly covered by water at some parts. Also, we have glaciers, which is frozen water. And lastly, we have oceans. there is something very important for you to notice. So only 3% of water in Earth is fresh water. So fresh water is the one that is intended to be used by humans because there is a higher proportion of salt water around Earth, but that is a little bit more difficult to be used. So imagine humans can only use up to 3% of the Earth water. So that's pretty interesting to analyze. That is why it's so important to take care of it. Let's continue. And we also have to analyze the water cycle because that is part of the surface water. So notice that water always goes through a cycle, which is the one that you can see right here in the picture. So how do clouds form? So they form from the evaporation of water. And let's start with evaporation and transpiration. So we have different portions of water like rivers, lakes, and everything. They are in contact with sunlight. So when they are in contact with sunlight, then they evaporate. And there is also something else that is called transpiration. So that is the expulsion of water that comes from plants, right? So after we have all of that evaporation of water and it goes to the atmosphere, then it cools down and it becomes a cloud, which we know as the process of condensation. When those clouds get colder and colder, then they start getting way more solid. So at the end, it produces snow or rain. That is known as precipitation. So when water comes down to the ground, there are certain surfaces where water is going to start flowing down. For example, mountains, hills, etc., etc. So all of that floating of water from the top to the bottom of a surface like a mountain or a hill is known as surface runoff. So here in the surface runoff, there is a small portion of water that can penetrate through the ground, which at the end it starts flowing under the ground. That is why it is known as groundwater. And at the end, all of the cycle is repeated over and over and over. That is why it is a cycle. All right, here we have some interesting images to analyze. So right at the left, that's what I was telling you about, is saline water is 90% in all around Earth, and only 3% is fresh water. So in the second one, the one that is right in the middle, the title is Earth's Freshwater Resources Total. So most of the fresh water is frozen. It's the 68.7%. And most of the fresh water is underground, which will be 30.1%. Now let's go with the last one, which is Earth's freshwater resource surface water. So in the surface water, we're going to find that most of the fresh water is in lakes. And the second one is in wetlands, and the last one is in rivers. So imagine how important it is for us to take care of our lakes like Amatitlan, because that is a part of the very little water that we have for usage. And right now, as you have probably seen, it is way contaminated. So it's very important that we start taking care of our environment. So now, please go to topic 3.01, page number 3, and answer the following questions. What is a watershed? What are the different types of wetlands? What is another name for a watershed? Why are wetlands important? And how can people protect or damage watersheds? So all of these questions have to be included in your summary in the Word document that you downloaded at the beginning of the class. All right? And now, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction into what is groundwater. Remember that because of time, you only have to complete the evaluation for topic 3.01. Now 3.02. This will be just a small introduction, so let's go pretty quick over that. So groundwater is water that is underground. So, and we have something called infiltration that I told you about before. So when water penetrates or goes underwater and it starts flowing because of impermeable rocks, then that is known as infiltration. We also have an aquifer, which is a type of sponge trapping water. So underground, there are certain rocks that are capable of storing some sort of mass of water. So they are known as aquifers, all right? Also, we have permeable rocks, which are the ones that allowed water to go through it. And also we have the ones that are impermeable rocks that do not allow rocks to go through them. And also we have water table. Water table is the top of the aquifer. So the portion of water that is right at the top of the aquifer is known as the water table. Here we have a very nice picture about groundwater and surface water. So you can notice that at the top there are rivers, there is a sort of lake right there, but under the ground we can find the water table and also the aquifer. As you can see right there, the aquifer is right at the bottom and the water table is right at the top. Right? That is a comparison between groundwater and surface water. Alright, now let's go with your evaluation. So you have to complete the lab report for topic 3.01. So please attach pictures of your project to the document. What rubric am I going to use? Please view the rubric and the evaluation for topic 3.01. So right before we